Good morning on this Wednesday, December 29th, a sad day in sports as we process the aftermath of the passing of John Madden, one of the all-time greats in football and broadcasting, the Madden video game. I mean, what an impact this guy had on the culture. It was just unbelievable. Let me grab my headphones. So we'll talk all sports today, but certainly a lot of John Madden talk. Hector Gomez, welcome in. John Williams from Dallas, welcome in. Cool. Yeah. I'll look at it. And if you see something that you really, really like, even if I don't have time to see it, and you want to bring it up, in the middle of a segment, we can do that and you can introduce it. So either way, that's good. But yeah, I'll look at that one at the bottom. Here, you and I will just set up the show, probably talk a lot of Madden, talk about what's coming up. Anthony Del Toro, welcome in. There are two others. I see a total of 5 right now. So welcome in. Here we go. Little sip of iced tea.
Is the Chris Duel Show.
Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through.
Now, Chris Duel.
Good morning on this Wednesday, December 29th. Just a couple of more days left in this year, 2021. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, although Shannon on vacation. She should be back on Monday. She'll be back on Monday. My goodness. Jeremy KOLOK is your Soundscape stylist and has been making just tremendous contributions on all levels to this show all week long, as he always does. So much we were planning on talking about today, and we still will. We'll still get to it. College bowl games, the Valero Alamo Bowl tonight in San Antonio, Oklahoma Sooners versus the Oregon Ducks. Another bowl game goes away, this one the Holiday Bowl, as UCLA had to pull out their opponent, none too happy. We'll get into that. NFL changing some COVID policies. Just Spurs in action tonight against the Miami Heat. Tons and tons of stories to talk about. I see Jorge on the live video feed. How about those Texas Tech Red Raiders beating the Pirate last night? Yep, that's a big story we'll get into. But late yesterday afternoon, the story broke that, my goodness, I'm going to say a football icon, but he was more than that. He was an American icon. He was a cultural icon. When you factor in the Madden video game and just the impact he had on culture, not just football. And you look at his winning percentage, he was one of the greatest football coaches ever. John Madden passed away yesterday at the age of 85. It is being reported that he passed away suddenly, so it was not expected. I had heard over the last few years that John Madden had some health issues. A friend of mine who lives in San Francisco and has met up with John Madden a couple of times over the years had told me a few years ago that he saw John Madden, and John had some health issues. So we don't know specifically the cause of death. It's just being reported by the NFL that it was unexpected. And while it is very, very sad, and we wish we had John Madden with us longer, I think part of what we're going to do today with you is celebrate John Madden and who he was. And I was listening to the program before us, the national radio show, Two Pros and a Cup of Joe, which is LeVar Arrington and Brady Quinn and Jonas Knox. And LeVar Arrington was saying, and LeVar Arrington had a number of moments over the years with John Madden, but I've heard this as well. Nobody ever had a bad thing to say about John Madden. Anybody who met him liked him. He was a good man, a good guy. And I think when you pass out of this earth, if that's one of your legacies, that you were just a good human being, you didn't have a lot of enemies because you didn't make a lot of enemies, that's pretty cool. That's one of the many things we can appreciate and celebrate about John Madden. I want to talk to our Soundscape stylist, Jeremy KOLOK. And Jeremy, you know, I'm going to be very curious to know your perspective on John Madden because you're 23 years old. I'm an old guy. I watched John Madden coach the Oakland Raiders in Super Bowl 11 and before Super Bowl 11. I mean, my first awareness of John Madden was, man, he's the coach of the Oakland Raiders, and the Oakland Raiders are a very, very formidable football team, as I was a Cowboys fan. Your thoughts on John Madden?
Well, for me, it started, and for like a lot of people in my generation, we were introduced to John Madden through his namesake video game. You know, Madden, the only Madden NFL game, the only NFL game out there. And yeah, I actually read a thing last night about how when Madden's contract ended, sometime in the early 2000s with EA, Electronic Arts, who make the game, there was a lot of talk within the company about moving on because the game had obviously gotten pretty big at that point to where they were already dominating the market. They didn't necessarily need his name, but they ultimately decided that it would only be right if they kept the name and they signed him to a lifetime contract, which now that I think about it, I guess his lifetime has ended. So, but I assume the Madden name will stay on the video game. And, you know, it's such an iconic name to football. And also kind of from a different perspective, me as a broadcast nerd a little bit, he's iconic insanely iconic for being the first football commentator to call games on all of the major networks, which is incredible to think about. I mean, that's unheard of. And of course, it was fitting that it's John Madden to do that, right? He's just it's like his name is in a complete league of its own in the football realm. Like, no, he's untouchable. There's so many tremendous names that have contributed to football's history in so many different ways. And that's not to disrespect anybody. I'm not trying to leave anybody out of his zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he is untouchable. That's just how I feel. And I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way.
And, you know, you talk about his football broadcasting and it's, by the way, it's our poll question today because John Madden just had such an impact on so many levels in his life and therefore on our lives. You know, those of us, you know, listening right now, and Jeremy and I are sports guys talking about sports on the radio. And if you're listening, you're probably interested in sports. But as I said, John Madden also had an impact on the culture. Our poll question this morning, and you can vote at Ticket760 on Twitter. Which aspect of John Madden's life was most impactful to you? Was it his NFL coaching career? Was it his broadcasting career? Or was it the Madden video game? And as Jeremy mentions, as a 23-year-old, he became aware of John Madden because of the Madden video game. But I want to point out as well, Jeremy, when John Madden became a color analyst for football, pretty much everybody did color analysis very straight. It was You know, the play-by-play guy would say there's a pass over the middle to Drew Pearson for 7 yards. And, you know, the analyst would go, yes, it's a very fine route that Drew Pearson ran. He faked out the cornerback. He went right and then left and got open, and Roger Staubach found him over the middle. I mean, that's what the color analyst was usually a football player or a coach who had experience in the game, and your play-by-play guy would do play-by-play and your color analyst would do color, but it was pretty vanilla. It was pretty ordinary. And here comes John Madden with the telestrator, you know, with his exuberance and his boom. And then he comes over here and he hits him and look out and boom. And it was unheard of. And it was entertaining and it was passionate and it was fun. And, you know, you now have a guy like Tony Romo who also brings nothing like Madden, but also brings a certain exuberance to the role as well. And Jeremy, I just think he was such an innovator on so many levels. And, you know, there are the some people on television that it doesn't matter what the game is. If it was John Madden and Pat Summerall, you know, and as you mentioned, John Madden worked on every network eventually. A lot of, you know, his notoriety was with Pat Summerall. We've got a clip we'll play for you when he worked with Al Michaels on Monday Night Football. We'll get into that a little bit as well. But today, modern day, when I'm channel surfing and that TNT basketball panel is on with Shaquille O'Neal and Kenny the Jet Smith and Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson, doesn't matter what the game is. I know those guys are great. They're informative. It's must-see TV for me. It can be the crappiest NBA game ever. If I see those guys, I'm putting the remote control down. I'm watching because they're great and they're amazing. Jeremy, John Madden was the same way. Granted, I will watch any football game because I'm an NFL freak. Give me the crappiest matchup in the NFL, and you know I am there. But John Madden, when he was there, it was I am going to be entertained. I'm going to learn something because he's a knowledgeable coach, and I'm going to have fun. And John Madden brought all of that and entertained us and gave us just fun and a better understanding of football for decades and decades and decades.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned NBA on TNT because a lot of times I find myself, or inside the NBA, I guess would be the halftime and post-game show with Ernie and Chuck and the crew. A lot of times I'll find myself like on my phone, like half paying attention to the game, like, you know, toward the end of the second quarter of whatever game is on. And then once it goes to halftime, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's halftime. And I'll like put my phone down and pay attention like it's the main event. And so I can definitely can resonate with that with John Madden. And also, like you mentioned, that how John Madden helped the viewer or just an average football fan who might not know as much as the other people who invest more time and whatnot. He helped people understand the game. He was more than just like describing what he saw. He really tried to paint a picture for, you know, to kind of peel back that curtain into what's going on behind the plays, but behind just what you see, right? So I always appreciate an analyst, a broadcaster that can help you learn stuff. I think that's such a cool trait. And one last thing I want to say about this is someone said this to me that, and I kind of thought about it. It's true that I feel like we hold broadcasters to such a high standard nowadays. And maybe that's been going on for a while. And people like John Madden, maybe just John Madden specifically, are the reason for that. And they set the bar set the bar so high for 2-3 generations of sports fans that now anybody else that steps into that role for any network is going to be critiqued like they never would have been before the days of John Madden, when broadcasts were bland and vanilla like you've described.
It's a brilliant point, Jeremy. And to illustrate that, you know, I think of when CBS decided to move Phil Simms out of the chair next to Jim Nantz and bring in Tony Romo. Phil Simms is a fine broadcaster. Phil Simms was a fine quarterback. He won a Super Bowl. Phil Simms is very knowledgeable, but Phil Simms does not bring you the entertainment value that Tony Romo does. And exactly what you described, to your point, Jeremy. John Madden started all that. John Madden, and I would say, and because I'm old and I remember, I want to almost also pay homage to NFL's Monday Night Football, the version with Howard Cosell, Dandy Don Meredith, and Frank Gifford. John Madden was still the coach of the Oakland Raiders. Monday Night Football with that broadcast booth was the first to say, hey, we can call a football game, but we can also have fun and entertain you. They started that, but as an analyst, John Madden took it to another level and a different level with a different skill set and a different way of entertaining you and me. And you make a great point, educating us about the game of football throughout the morning. In addition to, you and I will talk about John Madden. We're going to get into everything else in the world of sports. We're going to be joined at 8:05 by Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, we'll talk Spurs with Bill. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics, going to join us. Both of those guys, fine broadcasters. I want to talk about John Madden with them as well. But we want to hear from you. And you can join us either on the phone lines at 800-707-9760, or you can either tweet at us or talk to us on the live video feed. And I want to read a comment here from the live video feed from Tracy Bogert. And Tracy wrote this just a few minutes ago. He writes, I know there are so many important things in life, including family. However, if you're in your 50s or older, you will probably understand the importance of John Madden to the game of football. He had a thirst to help regular common folks understand the game of football. Rest in peace, John Madden, age 85, legendary NFL coach, 759 winning percentage, the highest in the history of NFL with coaches with 100 victories or more. He won Super Bowl 11 and got out of football at the right time as a winner. That's Jeremy. That's one of the other stunning aspects of John Madden's career. So many of these coaches who are successful stay around as long as they can. Tom Landry did it with the Cowboys. Chuck Noll did it with the Pittsburgh Steelers. John Madden, as Tracy just wrote, that 759 winning percentage is the best of any coach who's coached over 100 football games in the NFL. He could have either stayed with the Raiders or most teams in the NFL would have hired John Madden in a heartbeat to be their coach. He decided to go reinvent himself as a broadcaster. And then, as you mentioned, the Madden video game. My goodness, what a career. We'll talk more about John Madden this morning. We're going to hear some of the great moments over the years of John Madden in his voice, broadcasting, doing what he did remarkably. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we'll talk about everything else in the world of sports. NFL, college bowl games, NBA, Spurs versus the Miami Heat tonight, Valero Alamo Bowl tonight, Oklahoma Sooners versus the Oregon Ducks. We'll get into everything in the world of sports. We got your sports history, sports birthdays, high five, play of the day, and more. Once again, you got some thoughts on John Madden. We'd love to hear them on the phone lines, 800-707-9760, or you can tweet at us. Tweet me at Chris Duel. Tweet Jeremy at Jeremy KOLOK. We'll read your tweets on the air as well, and we'll read what you have to say to us on the live video feed that you can access. Ticket 760 or AM 1300, the Zone's Facebook page or Twitter page. You can find the live video feed. There's a YouTube portal as well. As we remember and celebrate the life and legacy of the amazing John Madden, who passed away yesterday at the age of 85. Jeremy KOLOK is your Soundscape stylist. Shannon Salty Sweeney on vacation until Monday. Thanks for hanging out with us till 9 o'clock this morning on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Foamfoot 420, that's a cool thought. Hope my dad gets to meet John Madden in heaven. Very cool. I will say hello to the people I see in here right now. Let me see who I see. I don't see everybody, so if I don't see your name, I would say hello. If you comment, I see your name. Hector Gomez, John Williams, Anthony Del Toro, Maria, Tracy, I read your comment just now. Ralph Balderas, Jeff McClanahan, Jorge Gonzalez Jr., Vince G. Gonzalez, Luisa Alanis, Manuel Gonzalez. Manuel, I think it's your birthday. I think I saw that on Twitter. Happy birthday, man, if it's your birthday. James Rippey, Christopher Smith. True. We need to mention that, Christopher. John Madden refused to fly on a plane. He had this big bus. I didn't bring that up in the first segment. We need to bring that up. Beth Settle. Good morning, Beth. James Rippey. I think we said good morning to James. James says, do y'all remember John Madden and Pat Summerall were in the football movie The Replacements? With that movie role, he should make an appearance in the Oscars memorial montage this year. Absolutely. Yeah, Manuel Gonzalez. We'll put his name up here. Happy birthday, man. Jason Paniagua, good morning. All right, let me check my coffee. Because God knows I need caffeine. Sometimes. Sometimes I don't have to go heat it up. Oh, I got to. How did you send that video? Did you send it via email or Twitter? Yeah, I'm not. Did you send it to my Gmail? I'm not seeing it on my. I'm not seeing it, which is weird. On iHeartMail. Try to DM it on to Twitter. Thank you. Shoot, why is that not?
Will take care of you further? Of course I will. That includes paying for college, right? Private or state? Private. Honey, I've got 10 You still have that other
Those sandwiches are phenomenal. But that scale sings a bad melody to you. Once in a while, you just have to go. You know what I mean? And I was first in the city. I mean, the Cowboys players all having their quarterback meeting on Saturday morning. It was this guy's first one was Dan Stubbs. They came in and made up the bacon sausage and
Yeah, we'll definitely play that at some point here. That's good. So you've got that other one ready to go for high five? Cool. Taro Kotani. Taro Kotani, the greatest international Spurs fan. So Taro, I'm thinking 6:15 tomorrow. I think I gave you the call-in number. You can always call in on the regular line, but if I can also give you the hotline. Taro's going to join us on the show tomorrow. Let's see. I need to 6:15. There he is. We are less than 24 hours away from the greatest international Spurs fan, Taro Kotani, joining us on this show. See if I have time to. I got to do a little bit of editing of audio during the show today. See if I can get one of those banged out here. There's one. All right. Okay, I got one of those there. Whoops. Oh, man. Come on.
I'm Nick Nimitz, and I'm a street artist. For the last 6 years, I've been live streaming consistently. Begin breaking news. The loss of a legend, football icon John Madden as basketball. Good evening, everyone. I'm watching this result tonight. Coach Madden certainly made an impact on so many, and not just on the field.
John Williams, I saw what you sent me. Very nice. Okay, let me see now. Here we go. Nice.
Sweet.
Little Prince for you. When Doves Cry, submitted for your approval by Soundscape Stylist, Jeremy KOLOK. I want to give a shout out on the radio. We said happy birthday to him during the break on the live video feed. Manuel Gonzalez having a birthday today. Happy birthday. He joins us frequently on the live video feed, which we always appreciate. Anybody listening on the radio, listening on the iHeartRadio app, which is crystal clear, by the way, if for whatever the reason your AM reception coming out of AM 1300 The Zone in Austin and or Ticket 760 in San Antonio, if for any reason the reception is not crystal clear, and how could that be possible? But if it's not, the iHeartRadio app has remarkably crystal clear sound. Just go to the iHeartRadio app. It's a free download. It's, my God, you can get so much stuff on it, including this show and any of these stations. Just go search AM 1300 The Zone or Ticket 760 or the Chris Duel Show. There's also a podcast. So there's a lot you can get there regarding this show and regarding these radio stations. Also on the live video feed, joining us this morning from Tokyo, Japan, as he frequently does, Taro Kotani, the greatest international Spurs fan, Taro Kotani. He'll be on the show tomorrow at 6:15 from Tokyo, Japan. We'll talk Spurs. We'll see if we'll be talking about a Spurs victory tomorrow morning, as tonight the San Antonio Spurs going to try to bounce back from that loss the other night to Utah. Spurs take on the Miami Heat tonight at the AT&T Center. And I always think that's a little unfortunate. And I guess it just happens that way. In San Antonio tonight, you've got the Valero Alamo Bowl. I got to ask Derek Fox this sometime. We had him on the show yesterday, the president and CEO of the Valero Alamo Bowl. So tonight at 8:15, you got the Valero Alamo Bowl, Oklahoma versus Oregon at the Alamo Dome, where the Spurs used to play. Now the Spurs play in the AT&T Center, and the Spurs play in town tonight against the Miami Heat. And Jeremy, it always seems to me, and I've never understood this, and I've seen this happen a number of times, that on the night of the Valero Alamo Bowl, there's a Spurs game. And it would seem to me if there were not a Spurs home game tonight, that's more, of those 18,000 plus sports fans. I know not all of them would go to the Alamo Bowl, but I'll bet you a bunch of them would. It just seems to me that if I had the ability to schedule both Spurs games and the Valero Alamo Bowl, I wouldn't have the Spurs in town with a home game on the night of the Valero Alamo Bowl. What do you think of that, and why do you think the scheduling works out that way?
Yeah, it would only seem logical, right, that we would try not to double up on our prestigious sporting events in this city. I mean, we don't have NFL team here. We don't have an MLB team here. We don't have an MLS team here. So we only, we're very grateful for the sporting events we do have, and of course our Spurs. But hey, we gotta take advantage of our events. Why are we doubling up? Why are we putting two on the same night? Somebody's I don't know who plans this. I don't know who's in charge of this. Somebody's gotta go to the offices of something downtown and tell somebody to open up both calendars next time when they're scheduling stuff. Because I mean, obviously you don't want to, there's a lot of people that are Spurs regulars, and they're not, some season ticket holders and some people that just like to go to games frequently. So for those people, it's like, hey, what if I wanted to go to the Valero Alamo Bowl, which is obviously a more exclusive event in the sense that it only comes around once a year. So some tough decisions to be made for some sports fans in our city, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah. And they're typically at a Spurs game, I think about 18,000 plus in attendance typically. And I'll never forget, Jeremy, when the San Antonio Commanders were in town, I guess about 3 years ago, in the Alliance of American Football. And I loved how the city got behind the Commanders. This was a startup league with players on the roster that most people did not know, but it was football. And one of my mantras and one of my adages is more football is good football. I don't care what level. Obviously, we want NFL football in San Antonio, but this was pro football. It was spring football. It was more football, and more football is good football. And if you look it up, on most nights, the Commanders would get like 30,000 plus, and darn near, I think Orlando was close, but they led the league in attendance. So there were like 4 home games before the league folded. Thank you. There were like 4 home games, and each of the home games for 3 of them were like 30,000, 33,000. And then one night, the Commanders had a game opposite the Spurs because it was spring football. And that game, it was like 22,000 instead of 32,000. And my thought was, dudes, Commanders, you're a startup league. How could this league have a home game at night in San Antonio on a night that the Spurs are playing? And it was just, somebody did not think that through. And it was a league that was trying to get traction. Now, in general, I mean, San Antonio got rave reviews, and rightfully so, in its support of the San Antonio Commanders. But don't schedule things out. We love our Spurs in this town.
Yes, we do.
So don't schedule opposite Spurs. And Spurs, I love you. Cooperate with the Valero Alamo Bowl. And I know it schedules handed down from the NBA. And
from the NBA.
it has to do with availability of the AT&T Center when there's not a concert or not a convention. I know all that. I get it. I know it's complicated, but it can't be that complicated.
There's only one Valero Alamo Bowl a year.
Yeah.
And then there's a little window that it's going to be in I think a few times it's been after New Year's, but for the most part, it is between Christmas Day and New Year's.
Yeah.
So for the Spurs, I mean, why can't this be held to the same standard for when at Staples, I mean, the former Staples Center, they have, their events, their award shows, and sometimes those award shows are not even in the arena. They're in the theater, which is across the street and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if somebody can look out for those types of situations, I would think that we can do the same over here for San Antonio for our one football game, our one non-college football game, or it is college, but our non-UTSA home football game, our home non-home team, you know what I mean? Our big event that we're hosting. And like you said, we love our Spurs as a city. I mean, that's never going to go away, and it never should. So I mean, it's more likely that the Spurs are going to take a little bit from the other event than it is that the other event's going to compete with the Spurs. I mean, the Spurs are 1A in this town, rightfully so.
Totally agree. Chris Gonzalez on the live video feed writes, the Alamo Bowl is always on the 28th or 29th of December. So it is the NBA's fault for scheduling that game. All right, Chris, we will lay the blame at the fault, or lay the fault at the feet of the NBA. Easy for me to talk at 6:46 in the morning when the coffee hasn't kicked in yet. All right, tell you what we will do right now. We're going to hand out a high five. We do it every morning at this time. We call it our high five play of the day, which is appropriately sponsored by High Five. 2 locations in the Austin area. It's like a mecca of sports and great drink and entertainment and food. The High Five locations, big screen TVs everywhere. Watch whatever sports you love. So you can watch the Alamo Bowl and the Spurs game at the same time since they're scheduled opposite each other. Great food, great drinks, food specials, drink specials, games, double-decker bowling on 2 floors, whichever one you want to bowl at. They've got axe throwing. They've got laser tag. They got zombie dodgeball, which Shannon still needs to teach me about. Someday we'll get into that. Maybe Monday when she gets back on Monday, January 3rd. Get into one of the 2 High Five locations. Jeremy, how could we not give a high five this morning to Mr. John Earl Madden? That's his birth name. John Earl Madden, born on April 10th, 1936 in Austin, but not Austin, Texas. He was born in Austin, Minnesota. I never knew there was an Austin, Minnesota. He passed away yesterday in Pleasanton, California, and it was a life well lived. Pro Football Hall of Fame. And speaking of which, we'll talk with James Allen tomorrow from the Pro Football Hall of Fame about John Madden, but just a prolific career. Drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1958. A lot of people don't know that. He didn't make the team. He was like a practice squad, the equivalent of what the practice squad was in 1958. But there's a life lesson. So he didn't make the Eagles. All right, you can still have a great career in football. And he did. He became an assistant coach at Allen Hancock High School in 1960 through 1963. He was an assistant first and then a head coach. He became defensive coordinator at San Diego State from 64 to 66. He became linebackers coach for the Oakland Raiders from 67 to 68. And then after the 68 season, Al Davis, the owner, said, you know what? 32-year-old John Madden, we're going to make you head coach. And it kind of worked out. John Madden had a winning percentage, including playoffs, of 76.3. Regular and postseason, his winning percentage is the best winning percentage of any coach in NFL history who has coached 100 games or more. And then he went into broadcasting, and he brought things like the turducken into the national consciousness. Jeremy has a little clip here from Monday Night Football with Al Michaels, where John Madden will talk. And if you don't know what a turducken is, he'll tell you what a turducken is. I didn't know what a turducken was until I found out from John Madden. Let's enjoy a little John Madden with Al Michaels during a football broadcast.
John, you're going to be home for Thanksgiving. I can't believe it.
I know where I'm going to be on Thanksgiving. I just wonder where those turkeys are going to be for Thanksgiving.
I have a feeling I know. Kevin Barlow. Well, John, for years at CBS and Fox, it became a tradition, the turkey leg and all of that. And you brought to the knowledge of America the turducken. And so our friends of the Four Seasons cooked you a turducken.
Oh,
there it is.
That is?
I think it's a turducken.
It is a turducken, but I got to show you how to. I can't show you. I need fresh turducken. I'm going to have crazy turducken. But anyway, here's how you slice it. A lot of people don't know. You have to slice it down the middle. See, and then you slice it across this way. Because what it is, it's a deboned chicken stuffed in a deboned duck stuffed in a deboned turkey with dressing between the chicken and the duck and the duck and the turkey. So as you cut down that way, you go turkey, dressing, duck, dressing, chicken.
You know, one of the great things about your coming over here is I'm able to ask you all of these questions, because for a lot of years I thought a turducken was some sort of a foul crossbreed, but it's not.
Well,
It's just three different things.
Yeah. It's really 5 different things. It's a chicken, a duck, a turkey, and 2 kinds of dressing.
And are you going to have one on your Thanksgiving table?
Yeah, I'm going to have one. I have to bring it though, but because here's
Here it is. Here's
a
a
picture one.
turducken.
Yeah.
Picture.
Here's
That is
one.
it.
And you see, you cut it like right down here. See, and then this is what it looks like inside. See, so you got turkey and duck, and then dressing, and then chicken.
Oh.
And then you just have to do it that way. If any of that makes sense.
Now, can I get some hoisin sauce with that? That's unbelievable.
The first time I ever had one of these, I ate it with my fingers, and then I had to shake hands, and I didn't know whether.
Stay away from me. 2nd and 7.
John Madden and Al Michaels. Nobody popularized the turducken like John Madden. Jeremy KOLOK, have you ever had turducken?
No, I haven't. I think now would kind of be the time.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Thanksgiving just passed, but I think obviously with the great John Madden passing away, I think it's time to start planning some turducken, I think, into my future. Have you ever had any?
To be honest, I've never had turducken, but now, especially now, to honor John Madden, first opportunity I get, I'm going to enjoy a turducken. Amazing.
I love how he describes it.
He's just hilarious. And what you didn't, because that was audio, he had it the telestrator, and he was showing you how you have to cut a turducken. There's a special, so he was using the telestrator to show you and us how to cut a turducken. John Madden, our high five for a life well lived. All right, we're going to talk more John Madden, but we're certainly going to get into everything else going on in the National Football League, in the NBA, college bowl season. Another college bowl bites the dust as UCLA has to pull out of the Holiday Bowl. The other team not happy about the way UCLA handled that. We'll walk you through that story. You can dial us up, 800-707-9760. Voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening at 8:05. Voice of UTSA Athletics and our golf guru, Andy Everett, at 8:35. We'll bring up Madden with them as well. Thanks for hanging out with us. With you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Well put, James Rippey. Well put, sir. I am going to heat up my coffee. Actually, because I have to edit some audio, I'm going to wait on that till the next segment. And I'm going to edit what I have to edit here. So let's do that. Let's do some editing. I had to record 3 spots this morning. So actually they're 5. So I recorded them back to back to back to back to back. So I just have to edit them now. It's not that big a deal. All right, there's number 2. I got 5 of them. Coming up an hour from now, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. And obviously, I'm going to want to get Bill's thoughts. See, I've done 3, right? So this would be the 4th one. I'm going to want to get Bill's thoughts on John Madden as a guy who does play-by-play and a guy who has done color and a guy who has done football. Bill Schoening should be very insightful and be interesting to get his thoughts on what made John Madden as remarkable as he was.
So a friend told me about Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, and his exact words were, "It changed my life. I used to spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to remove tomato sauce from inside our microwave
Do it.
and soap scum off the bathtub. It's like seriously magic, and my secret weapon for
Clean Magic Eraser. Greatest invention ever.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, the unicorn of cleaning.
One more. And we did it. Okay, now I just have to mail it. Who does this go to? Ah. Come on. There it is. Yeah, Jorge, that's, with all of these bowl games getting canceled, that is not outside the realm of possibility. All right, let me see here.
If holiday music turned your joy all the way up to 10, then Sirius XM is your home for the holidays. From traditional and country to pop, soul, and so much more, Sirius XM has exclusive holiday channels dedicated to the music that makes your season bright. Listen in the car on the way to the party, or in the living room as you're wrapping presents. Visit SiriusXM.com/listenholiday for how to start listening.
All right, let me see what else I got here. Yeah, Foam Foot 420, you bring up a very interesting point, and I'll be interested to learn, and I imagine we will, from someone close to John Madden. You know, did he see that documentary on Christmas Day? I'm assuming he did, and, you know, because they said his death was unexpected. So, how amazing. That documentary was on Christmas Day, and, you know, he'd be gone by the 28th, 3 days later. Just unbelievable. Here we come.
This is the Chris Duel Show. Now, Chris Duel.
It is midweek, but it is late in the fourth quarter when it comes to the year 2021 on this December 29th, 2021. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Shannon on vacation. We do have Jeremy KOLOK on board, though, as well, doing a great job this morning. We spent a lot of the 6 o'clock hour talking about John Madden. His passing happened yesterday morning. We learned about it yesterday afternoon. And you look at all of the athletes and coaches and very, very notable people across the spectrum of broadcasting and media and sports and football, all expressing their sadness, their condolences, and yet at the same time celebrating the amazing life and legacy of John Madden, in addition to everything else we'll talk about this morning, including NFL football, college bowl games, and there's a big story involving UCLA pulling out of the Holiday Bowl and their opponent none too happy with the way UCLA handled that. We'll talk NBA as well. Spurs game tonight. Spurs host the Miami Heat. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, joining us in less than an hour. We'll certainly also talk to Bill about John Madden, as we will with Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics, who is going to join us just after 8:30. And, of course, you got a bowl game in San Antonio tonight, the Valero Alamo Bowl, 8:15 kickoff, Oklahoma Sooners versus the Oregon Ducks. Back to John Madden for a moment, though, Jeremy. Foam Foot on our live video feed, her real name Amber. Amber brings up a point. She says John Madden must have felt his life was complete after watching the All Madden documentary on Saturday, on Christmas Day. And I didn't think about that until she just brought that up. Jeremy, I'm going to be very interested to hear, and I haven't seen the documentary yet, and I missed it on Christmas Day. Apparently there was a re-air last night. Jason Paniagua on the live video feed is saying it will be available for streaming starting on January 3rd on ESPN Plus and Peacock. So that's cool. I went looking for it on YouTube. As soon as I got the news on John Madden yesterday, I said, all right, is that documentary on YouTube? Now I really want to see it. I wanted to see it anyway. But I wonder, Jeremy, and I guess we're going to find out from somebody close to John Madden. Here, this documentary dropped on Christmas Day, and he passed away yesterday on December 28th, 3 days later. I'm going to be very interested to know, did he see it? And what did he think about it? How did he react to it? We're hearing reports that John Madden died unexpectedly. So I would assume, I mean, it was such a big event, and we were hearing about this documentary for weeks leading up to Christmas Day. I got to believe John Madden saw the documentary. And you think about it, you lead this amazing life. And so often when someone dies at a funeral, there's the video tribute to them, and people at the funeral are saying, oh man, I wish he or she could have seen this video tribute because it's so cool and captures their life in such an amazing way. In a weird way, if John Madden saw that, he got to see his tribute video on his way out the door, which is just another remarkable aspect to this whole John Madden life story.
Yeah, well, first of all, the reason Fox was able to re-air the documentary last night was because one of the bowl games that, I don't know which one, but one of the bowl games that got canceled was supposed to be on Fox.
Okay.
So they had an open time slot.
Wow.
So then it just kind of fell into place that way. And then I haven't seen it either. And Amber's comment actually reminded me of it too, because I mean, I just kind of forgot about it. And I was literally thinking last night, I was like, man, I've got to watch that now. I have to watch that now as soon as possible. And then I also saw there's a tweet from Kurt Menefee, who works for Fox. He's one of the sports dudes over at Fox. And last night when he heard the news, not the news that John Madden died, but when he got the news from the Inside or whatever that Fox was going to re-air the documentary, he sent out a tweet. And part of his tweet, he said, I love the fact that John Madden not only got to see the documentary in full, but he received all of the tributes from each participant and watched it with his family on Christmas Day. So it was a living eulogy, basically. According to Kurt Menefee, John Madden saw it. He got all the praise from it. He heard from everybody involved. And like I said, he watched it on Christmas Day with his family just 3 days before he ended up passing away.
Mike, I'm glad you had that information, Jeremy, because I did not have that information, and thank goodness Kurt Menefee put it out there for us to know that. I'm trying to think in my life of anyone, whether a famous person or someone we've known in our lives, who were able to experience, you talk about that, a video eulogy and a video celebrate. We talk about at funerals, it's often a celebration of life. You celebrate the amazing life that person had. For John Madden to be sitting there with his family on Christmas Day, it was a Christmas present on Christmas Day to watch that documentary. I love it. And like you said, and Christmas Day, the weather was really nice. So I went out to the pool. It like sort of slipped because I had for the last several weeks during Fox football games, there's been ads for the John Madden documentary. So I wanted to watch this. Oh, I got to make a note. That's Christmas Day. But Christmas Day, the weather was great. So I went out to the pool, had a couple of adult beverages. So I missed it. And then last night, I did not know that Fox was re-airing it. I didn't see Kurt Menefee's tweet. I didn't know. I do want to see it. And again, I thank Jason for telling us it'll be available January 3rd and after on ESPN Plus and Peacock. So I will see it just as soon as possible. But my goodness gracious, how amazing, remarkable, cool, and poignant it is that John Madden got to see that. And now we'll look at that documentary knowing John Madden saw it. And 3 days later, he checked out of this life. Wow. All right. We are actually, believe it or not, going to talk about other sports, although we will revisit the John Madden story because it's the big story in sports today. I want to get to this and get your thoughts. And I think this has even more implications, Jeremy. UCLA pulled out of the Holiday Bowl yesterday, just hours before. And maybe that was the game last night. It was supposed to kick off at 7:00 Central Time at Petco Park in San Diego against North Carolina State. And just hours before, UCLA pulls out of that game. Now, the athletic director for North Carolina, the Wolfpack, talked to reporters, and he said, quote, "I felt lied to be honest. We felt like UCLA probably knew something was going on and didn't tell anybody on our side. We had no clue what they were up against. I don't feel like it was very well handled from their university. It would have been great to have some heads up 2 or 3 days ago so we could have found a plan B. Disappointing," end quote. Now, we've seen, Jeremy, some of these teams in a bowl game, when one team has to pull out of the bowl game, they've been able to go, that team that was left standing there without a game to play has gone on to find another opponent and still create a bowl game experience for their players and their program. Here, the athletic director, Boo Corrigan is his name, for North Carolina, I mean, openly telling reporters they should have let us know there was a problem. They should have let us know they weren't able to field a team sooner. They shouldn't have waited until just mere hours before kickoff. Granted, we don't know all the issues here, and maybe indeed UCLA did find out just hours before kickoff. It's like, nope, too many of these players tested positive. It can't happen. We need to cancel now. We need to pull out now. Sadly, it's only a few hours before kickoff. But it is sad. And Jeremy, you think about North Carolina, the Holiday Bowl's in San Diego. North Carolina's on the other side of the country. Think about the team, the coaching staff, family, fans flew out from North Carolina to go to San Diego to see the bowl game, and there's no bowl game. And as we react to this, Jeremy, how do we know? You've got 4 teams right now in the college football playoff. Alabama, Cincinnati. Oh, by the way, that round 1 of the playoffs is on Friday. Alabama, Cincinnati, Georgia, and Michigan. How do we know that one of these teams, if not multiples, are going to be hit with COVID such that they're unable to play? I pray to God that all 4 of those playoff teams are quarantining in a hotel and not going anywhere. Your thoughts, Jeremy, on what UCLA did? Do you think the North Carolina State athletic director has a gripe here? And how concerned are you that other bowl games, including perhaps the college football playoff, could still be affected?
Yeah, it's obviously a tough situation for any athletic director or university athletic department to handle. I am very much of the opinion that I just want transparency because it's obvious, like you said, it's tough to judge when we don't know what's going on in the inside. But it's, I mean, like, I guess UCLA just said that their defensive line room was decimated by COVID. And I don't know what more I want than that, but I guess I just want more information. I'm sure, not that I deserve more information, but I'm sure NC State would like more information. Just an explanation. I mean, it's unfortunate all around, and there's the obvious points that, I mean, the timing of it, you would like for it to have been earlier, right? Not the day of, hours before. But we don't know. We don't know their situation. We don't know what they found out that day. We don't know what they might have been holding off on telling us before that day. We don't know. That's why I just want transparency on it. Tell us exactly why you feel like you can't play this football game that, I mean, it's kind of just for fun. I mean, why not saying that like it doesn't matter. I'm saying it's just for like what do you have to lose if you do have walk-ons that could play?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, I don't mean to take that stance super hard like your COVID issues don't matter, because they do, and I don't know how bad they got hit because they didn't give us any numbers or anything. They just said their defensive line room was decimated. But the thing that I guess does bother me a little bit is that there's reports that UCLA is planning to practice still.
Whoa.
And like, yeah, this is just from stuff I was reading. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I saw a lot of people saying that UCLA, not only did they get their pre-bowl practices in, which is, you know, they're allowed that because I assume they were planning on playing in the bowl game, right? But they're still, well, from what I have been reading, they're not shutting down the program, kind of like I guess I would expect when you're canceling a football game, a bowl game, because of a viral illness that's going through your team.
And I want to underscore, I think most people listening know this, but in case they don't, one of the reasons you want to go to a bowl game, if you're a college football program, in addition to the bowl and the reward for your players and your program, is the extra practices. If you don't go to a bowl game, you shut down, your season's over, and you have to wait till spring practice to practice again and evaluate players and get ready for the next season. One of the virtues of going to a bowl game is you get these extra practices, to get ready for the bowl game, but you're also evaluating talent for next season, which gives you an advantage if you didn't have those practices going into the next season and planning what your next year's going to look like roster-wise and personnel-wise. So as you say that, Jeremy, if that's true, if UCLA, okay, our defensive line room is decimated, so we're not going to play, but, we still have these allotted practices, so we're still going to do it. We can still practice with the offense. We can still practice with the linebackers and the secondary and the special teams, so we're going to practice. I don't like that. And another thing, and you alluded to this, Jeremy, I lean on the side of if you can play the game, play the game. So, all right, your defensive line room is decimated. Do you have reserve offensive linemen? And I know a defensive lineman is bigger than a cornerback. I get it. But do you have offensive linemen who now maybe they never played on the D-line? Could they play on the D-line in this game? I mean, most of us have played sandlot football. I mean, most of us have played offense and defense. Most of us have rushed the passer. Most of us have thrown a football, caught a football, defended a football. And I know Division I college football at the level of a UCLA or a North Carolina State or the Holiday Bowl is a whole different animal. And I know it's not necessarily that simple, but on a certain level, it also is. And on a certain level, yes, it would be an adventure, but these are great athletes. And it could be for a reserve offensive lineman or maybe a linebacker who might be able to play on the line, who might not otherwise get into that game or might not get a lot of reps in that game. It could be a good experience for them. Is it more likely that North Carolina State will beat you if you have non-regular guys playing on the defensive line? Yeah, that could happen. But again, and maybe not. Maybe you still win the game. I still say, Jeremy, and I think this is where you went as well. If you can field a team, get out there, play the game. And it seems like UCLA didn't do this. It seems like UCLA said, "Oh, our D line is decimated, so we just won't play because, if we stick some guys in there who weren't regulars, we might lose, and that's not good for our reputation." It sure seems as though some of that was going on.
Yeah, and it's I guess the timing just rubs me the wrong way too. And like I said, we don't know. Maybe they uncovered it literally 4 hours before the game. But canceling the game 4 hours out when your team went to SeaWorld the night before, which obviously you're invited by the people that put on the bowl game and stuff. But you know what I mean? Like you didn't test before you went to SeaWorld. This all had to go down 4 hours before the game.
Yeah.
And that's why I guess for me, it would be very nice to get more transparency on this type of thing. And I get specifically for this circumstance because if they had said 2 or 3 days out, like, whoa, things are not looking good right now. We've got a lot of people testing positive day after day. And I mean, things show that if you have people test positive, in sports, it's very likely that more people within the program are going to test positive within the next day or the next few days. So if they had said that a few days ahead of time and said, hey, man, there's a real chance we won't have any defensive linemen on our team at this point. And I guess if they just gave more information, I would feel better about it. But all we had were the days leading up to this game were rumors, like from beat reporters and stuff saying like, with the players that UCLA has had opt out, and then the guys that we've heard are getting sick, the reporters are just doing the math in their head. Like, I don't know who's going to play for this team. But we didn't hear really anything official from the team until 4 hours out from kickoff.
See, and I understand in a perfect world and in the world that existed before COVID, I understand going to SeaWorld the night before the game. And I understand a bowl game is a reward to your team, to your players, to your staff, to your fans. But, I mean, we've already seen bowl games get canceled this bowl season. And the bottom line for me, if you're UCLA, if you're North Carolina State, the two teams that were in the Holiday Bowl, if you're Oregon or Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, and certainly if you're in the college football playoff, it's a business trip. I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, go to SeaWorld. If you're in the Valero Alamo Bowl, yeah, go to the Riverwalk. Have a river barge parade. Everybody get on a river barge. Let's go have a parade. That was pre-pandemic. And I know San Antonio and Derek Fox and all the hospitality here, I know they want to show the players a wonderful time, but it's a business trip. So if I'm the coach or the athletic director of any of these teams in bowl games, certainly UCLA, I'm saying, guys, we love you. We got a game to play. And if it weren't for a pandemic, we'd go to SeaWorld. We'd go to these gatherings. We'd go to these wonderful places that the host cities want to show their hospitality to us. However, it's a business trip. We got a game to play. So we're going to pass on any public gatherings. I mean, we've learned this since March of 2020, if not earlier, when COVID exploded in the United States, that you stay 6 feet apart from each other, you social distance, you wear a mask in public places, certainly indoors, and you sanitize. And now you get vaccinated and you get boosted and you do these things and you're doing the best things you can. Those are the best practices to avoid the virus or its variant. Everybody hopping on buses and going to SeaWorld, I don't think is best practices personally. Anyway, God forbid another bowl game is going to see this in the next few days, including, God forbid, the college football playoff, but it is not outside the realm of possibility. It could happen.
I'm trying not to think about it, but I mean, it's just one day at a time, and we get to those days leading up to the college football playoff, or I don't know, we're going into the semifinal here pretty soon. But just every day I wake up and check my phone and hope that there's not that report that says that somebody from one of these 4 programs has tested positive.
I just got to hope that Nick Saban and Luke Fickell and Jim Harbaugh, the coaches in the play, are just really saying, hey, we got to approach this differently. We got to really isolate and darn near quarantine till we play this football game, especially on that level. Everything you've worked for, and you got a shot at the national championship. My God. Coming up, we have this day in sports history. A lot happened on this day in sports history. Sports birthdays and a whole lot more. We will talk NFL. And hey, we're talking about college football bowl games getting canceled. We're not out of the woods yet in the NFL. Carson Wentz, the Indianapolis Colts, trying to fight their way into the playoffs. Carson Wentz, quarterback of the Colts, on the COVID list. Is Sam Ehlinger going to now inherit the quarterbacking job this Sunday for the Indianapolis Colts? We'll get into that. Voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening at 8:05. Andy Everett, voice of UTSA Athletics at 8:35. And we'll certainly talk John Madden with those guys and you as well. Till 9, Jeremy making the show go. Shannon on vacation. It's the Chris Duel Show.
Oh.
If you're going to sneeze, wait until the segment's over. Doesn't always work out that way, but I appreciate it when it works out that way. Let's see here. Did I email that? I think I did. I did. Okay, that's good. Now, I'll look for something else. I just sent you a video of John Madden with the telestrator drawing a beard on Troy Aikman. Probably after sports history and sports birthdays, we'll come back before 8 o'clock and run that audio probably. Then if we have time, depending on if it's time for 2 videos, then we'll do the one you sent me. So we'll start with Troy Aikman, and then if we have time, we'll do the one you sent me as well. All righty. I need more ice. I need more ice.
So a friend told me about Mr. Nitschke eraser, and his exact words were, "It changed my life. I used to spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to remove tomato sauce from inside our microwave and soap scum off the bathtub. It's like seriously magic, and my secret weapon for cleaning the kitchen, bathroom,
I'm gonna go grab some ice pretty quickly here.
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, greatest invention ever."
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, the unicorn of cleaning.
Back in a sec. Woo! Woo! Barney Segura, Kathy Rodriguez, welcome in. Lucinda Sullivan, Jorge, Maria, Christopher Smith. We got some sports history and some sports birthdays coming up. Then we got some John Madden. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs at 8:05. Andy Everett at 8:35. Of course, we'll talk some John Madden as well with those guys, in addition to everything else that's going on in the world of sports. I got my ice for my iced tea. So I now got it going on. I am guzzling caffeine. Okay, Madden died on the 263rd of his age, which is 56 prime. I don't, okay. That is interesting. That's some math going on there, Amber. Okay. Here we come.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. 1-800-707-9760.
Thank you, voice dude. Yeah, we do take your phone calls. You want to talk some John Madden? You want to talk about UCLA? pulling out of the Holiday Bowl just hours before kickoff. Can you imagine those players? Can you imagine you're North Carolina State, and you have your game day routine, and you're gearing up to play, and it's North Carolina State. So I would argue maybe the biggest football game of the careers of a lot of those football players. And about 2 or 3 hours before kickoff, UCLA goes, can't do it. Can't field a team. And it's like, bam, wow. The feeling of emptiness must have been amazing.
How about if you're a parent of a NC State player who buys a plane ticket from North Carolina across the country, and you find out 4 hours before the biggest game of your son's collegiate career, at the very least, and likely football career, that you flew across the country just for funsies, pretty much.
And it was just a few hours before kickoff. So you probably also, you had to get a ticket, you had to get a hotel, you had to get transportation from the hotel to the stadium. So you were probably getting in place at the stadium. There were probably people in the parking lot tailgating. And then, nope, sorry, no game. Wow. That's not pretty. That is not pretty. And again, we are not out of the woods yet with respect to the college football playoffs, the semifinal games. And let me double check that because that is on Friday. Is it Friday or is it Saturday? The semifinals. They're on Friday, right? All right, I'm clicking on it. In my head, it was Friday. It's the 31st.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's Friday.
Yes, that is.
And I think at 3:30, the first game is Alabama-Cincinnati. So, okay. And then your late game would be Georgia versus Michigan. So, yeah, okay. My God. Let's just hope. And we'll get into it here in a bit, your latest COVID casualty, although they're hoping maybe he'll be back in time to play on Sunday, is Indianapolis Colts quarterback Carson Wentz. But you've got Sam Ehlinger. I almost, there's a part of me that almost wants to see Sam Ehlinger play, which would be cool. So anyway, we'll get into all of that coming up. Of course, if you're just tuning in, we're midway through the show here. We come on the air at 6, and Jeremy and I have talked a lot about the passing and the legacy of legendary coach and broadcaster John Madden. We'll get more into that. We got some more John Madden audio for you, and certainly in the 8 o'clock hour with our guests, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, and Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. We'll certainly bring up and get their thoughts on John Madden as well. Before all that, how about some sports birthdays and this day in sports history? December 29th, 1933, New York Yankees owner Jacob Ruppert refuses to release slugger Babe Ruth to manage the Cincinnati Reds. I never knew Babe Ruth could have managed the Cincinnati Reds, but no, the Yankee owner wouldn't let him out of his contract. On this day in 1957, the NFL championship game was played at Briggs Stadium in Detroit. The Detroit Lions beat the Cleveland Browns 50-14. The Lions scored 2 touchdowns in each quarter. So if you're a Lions fan, you can say, well, at least we had the 1950s. On this day in 1963, the NFL championship game was played at Wrigley Field in Chicago, where the Bears beat the New York Giants 14-10. It was the New York Giants' 3rd consecutive championship defeat, and they were all played in temperatures under 10 degrees. They were cold. This day in 1968, in Cleveland Municipal Stadium, the Baltimore Colts shut out the Cleveland Browns 34-0. But don't get too cocky, Baltimore Colts, because that same day, December 29th, 1968, the AFL championship game at Shea Stadium, the New York Jets beat the Oakland Raiders 27-23, 3 touchdown passes for Joe Namath. By the way, the assistant coach on the sideline for the Oakland Raiders that day, John Madden, after that game, Al Davis would name him head coach of the Raiders moving forward. So those two teams would meet in Super Bowl III, the Colts and the Jets. And of course, we know the Jets would win that game 16-7. It was historic because the AFL had never beaten the NFL in a championship game, which is now, of course, known as the Super Bowl. This day in 1982, legendary college football coach Paul Bear Bryant ended his career coaching with the University of Alabama. He also coached at Texas A&M. He finished with 323 wins. Yeah, Bear Bryant was pretty good. On this day in 2007, Tom Brady set a then NFL record, throwing his 50th touchdown pass. The New England Patriots become the first team in NFL history to finish the regular season 16-0, to which Eli Manning said, "Hold my beer." Finally, on this day in 2020, a year ago today, the Milwaukee Bucks break the NBA record for most three-pointers made by a team in a single game. They made 29 three-point shots as they dominated the Miami Heat in Miami, 144-97. Those Miami Heat play the Spurs tonight at the AT&T Center 1 year later. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, George. Thank you, Ringo. Thank you, Yoko. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Patty Boyd. Thank you, Linda Eastman. And yes, thank you, Cynthia Lennon. We remember you. Born on this day in 1936, NFL linebacker with the Green Bay Packers, Ray Nitschke. I just love the name. Ray Nitschke. He sounds like he would just hit you and hurt you. And he would. Ray Nitschke was born in Elmwood Park, Illinois. He passed away in 1998. Born on the same day as Ray Nitschke, only 2 years later, in 1938, American businessman Wayne Huizenga, who made all of his money in A, waste management, and B, Blockbuster Video, and then he wound up owning the Miami Dolphins, the Florida Panthers, and the Florida Marlins. Wayne Huizenga was born in Evergreen Park, Illinois. He passed away in 2018. Born on this day in 1963, Super Bowl championship coach that Jerry Jones let get away, Sean Payton. He was an assistant under Bill Parcells for the Cowboys. He went on to become the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. The rest is history. Won a Super Bowl, coach of the year in 2006. There was Bounty Gate. He had to go away from the game for a year. Finally, born on this day in 1967 in Tuskegee, Alabama, defensive end Tony Tolbert, who played on those Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl championship teams, 2 under Jimmy Johnson, 92 and 93, 1 under Barry Switzer with Jimmy's players in 95. Happy birthday, Tony Tolbert, Sean Payton, Wayne Huizenga, and Ray Nitschke. Those are your sports birthdays and your sports history. Yes. All right, we got to, we've been talking about John Madden, and we should. It's the biggest story in sports this morning. We found out yesterday afternoon, John Madden passed away unexpectedly at the age of 85, as Jeremy told us. Kurt Menefee tweeted out yesterday that John Madden did indeed on Christmas Day with his family watch in its entirety the John Madden documentary that dropped on Christmas Day on Fox. That's so cool. One other cool thing about John Madden, before we hear a little more audio from him, Jeremy, you probably know this. He hated flying and refused to fly. Here he was, a national sports analyst, color commentator on NFL games, mostly with Pat Summerall. But as you mentioned, Jeremy, he worked with every network doing football color in the NFL. He had a bus. He would not fly from city to city. He would have to leave days early on his bus, and it was a very cool bus. It was all decked out, as we know. Just another one of the cool little quirks about John Madden. And again, a guy who was able to live his life on his terms. He didn't like flying. He was afraid of flying, but he still made it work. and he got a bus, and he went from NFL city to NFL city on a bus, which I just think is a cool additional bit of information on the life of John Madden. If you're a Cowboys fan, back in the Jimmy Johnson era, John Madden and Pat Summerall called a lot of games because the Cowboys were on top of the world. They were winning a lot of games. They were winning a lot of Super Bowls. So it almost seemed like every Sunday when there was a Cowboys game, there was a good chance John Madden and Pat Summerall would be calling that Dallas Cowboys game. We got a little audio for you here when Troy Aikman had gone a few days without shaving, and John Madden noticed but was not impressed by Troy Aikman's beard. So he got out the telestrator and he started showing where Troy Aikman was starting to get some facial hair, but not doing as impressively as John Madden would have liked. So John Madden went on to draw a beard on Troy Aikman on the sidelines with the telestrator. Here's a little bit of that audio.
That's not Troy Aikman's house.
And you notice, Pat, Troy Aikman's trying to grow a beard, and he just can't do it. I mean, you know, the blonde-haired guys, a lot of them have trouble, but I can't even, I'm looking as close as I can, and I can't see any beard, but that's a 4-day beard, isn't it?
It's a passive attempt.
But it's very, very passive.
Here's Terry Allen. Out to about the 20. There it is.
You know, here it is. But see, I mean, he got a little in here and a little up there. Here, but he doesn't have anything here at all. Watch, when you take it off, he doesn't have anything going up in there.
I think you got to give him time. He just had his 29th birthday.
I know, but I don't think he's doing a very good. I'd quit. I mean, you know, like if you've been working out for like 4 days and that's all you get, and the going gets tough. If it's that tough, just quit.
Well, you can't just quit.
Yes, you can. But that's what I'm saying. When the going gets tough, quit. Never lose.
That's a coach's saying, and I have incomplete from Schuler to Allen.
Amazing. One of the great things about John Madden there, Jeremy, again, using the telestrator, which and obviously nobody did the telestrator like John Madden did. We heard earlier carving up a turducken he showed with the telestrator, and we played you that audio in the last hour, how to carve up a turducken on the telestrator. And here he was showing the facial hair growth of Troy Aikman with the telestrator, and then ultimately just coloring it in and creating a beard for Troy Aikman with the telestrator. Very, very cool.
Yeah, they should just name the telestrator after John Madden. I know we have a video game named after him, so maybe that wouldn't stick. But my point is that he basically invented the telestrator, at least its uses in modern broadcasts, and just basically kind of a genius in the way that he used it in so many different, not only to inform about his vast football knowledge and to show, you know, what's actually happening in the play, but he was funny with it. I mean, as you heard in the turducken clip from the last hour, I mean, he's showing where you're supposed to cut and rip apart the bird. He was creative with it.
And it was part of his genius. You know, he knew when to focus on the game, and he knew when to find other things that were entertaining, like Troy Aikman trying to grow a beard on the sideline. And he loved food, as we know, Jeremy, and we just talked about the turducken. And apparently there was a restaurant deli in Dallas that was one of John Madden's favorites. And in another Dallas Cowboys football game, John Madden and the topic of food came up once again, and we've got that audio as well. More John Madden.
That is John Madden's favorite meal. It's called a sub sandwich. Eggs, bacon, sausage, ham and cheese on Texas. So, John, if you had a last meal, that would be it, wouldn't it?
I think it'd be close. I mean, you can't do this stuff. When you come to Texas, when you come to Dallas, believe me, you have to have one of those.
Now to the outside and coming back. And the 16 was Ahmad Bradshaw up to the 25-yard line. Those sandwiches are phenomenal, but that scale sings a bad melody to you. One of those
But once in a while, you just have to go. You know what I mean? And I was first introduced. I mean, the Cowboy players all have it. They have it at their quarterback meeting on Saturday morning. It was named after this guy. The first one was Dan Stubbs. He came in and made up the the bacon and sausage and egg and that whole thing. Then just went wild after that.
John Madden loved his food, whether it was a sandwich or a turducken or a big old turkey leg. And again, we've talked about him all morning, Jeremy, and we should. And I know a lot of people across America are remembering and celebrating and talking about John Madden. And we've talked about his genius. And I think because, I mean, obviously he was a brilliant football coach, nobody with a better winning percentage. Obviously he had the presence of mind to be a very talented entertainer while covering football on television. But stuff about talking about food and, even if you gain weight, sometimes you just got to go for it. It was the fact that he could appeal to the common man and the common woman. And you mentioned earlier, he would make football more accessible and understandable to the common man and the common woman and the common kid. That was part of his genius, his ability to appeal to most Americans, and even non-football people who would tune in could relate to John Madden.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking, is that you could know nothing about the game or even care about football, but you could tune in and John Madden's going to entertain you. And you put it exactly how I would have put it. He was so personable, and he seems like a real person instead of a figure, kind of like sometimes people on TV can seem like. And he was just so relatable in the way he spoke in a type of conversational way. And I admire that on a broadcast. It's very easy to listen to, and it's just it's a homey atmosphere, right?
Yeah, and by all accounts, people who knew him away from the microphone and away from the stadium say what you saw and heard on TV, that's who he was. He was the nicest guy, the most personable guy to everyone he met. And not everybody's like that. A lot of people in the public eye, I've met some people who have one persona in public and on the air, and then a completely different one off. Not John Madden. That's who he was. So cool. All right, quick break. Bill Schoening, Andy Everett, a huge 8 o'clock hour coming at you. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. Little Stevie Winwood for you on the way out. All right, getting ready for Bill Schoening. Let's see. Madden's last broadcast was Super Bowl 43, 13 years ago.
Feel every turn.
Wow. More math. More math, Amber. We might have to give you a sports math segment on the show. Gotta find something here.
Get the LC starting at $1,800 or the DL series starting at $40,000. For a limited time, save 15% when you pre-order at motionsimulation.com. Prices exclude tax and shipping.
So a friend told me about Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, and his exact words were, "It changed my life."
I lost my pen. That's not good. Where'd my pen go?
Tomato sauce from inside our microwave and soap scum off the bathtub. It's like seriously magic, and my secret weapon for cleaning the kitchen, bathroom, doors and walls, and even keeping my sneakers clean. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser. Greatest invention ever. Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, the unicorn of cleaning.
There you go. So you even have a title. Numbers don't lie. Very nice. Woo!
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of going for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. The What's the worst that can happen? Get pulled over. Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. They total your car. You kill someone. The result of driving drunk and tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by Nitschke.
No, my pen is not behind my ear. I found my pen, John. It was not behind my ear, though. But that's good. That was a good question. Yeah, and Jason, I don't know if you want to do that in conjunction with us, but we're going to have James Allen on the show tomorrow. And I want to go to Fuegos with James Allen and anybody else who wants to join us and have that James Allen monster veggie taco. You call him. Is the number there? Yeah. Andy tends to call us, not always, but most of the time. But yeah, we call Bill. Okay, question. Hooligan fans in American football, as in European football, do they exist? If you do not know, then will you know that fans in Europe are very crazy? Yeah, I think the fans in Europe are a little crazier, although, there are obviously isolated incidents where fans act out and do crazy things, I think both in Europe and in the United States and everywhere. So, but just overall, just given the term hooligans and, just in media reports, it looks like there's more instances of fans acting out. The Raider fans, though, yeah, that's a great point. The Las Vegas Raider fans in football, formerly the Oakland Raiders, at one time the Los Angeles Raiders, they're certainly crazy. And there is some weirdness with the Bills Mafia, as you mentioned. Yeah, John Williams. Yeah, Bruce Arians did test positive for COVID. Wes Perkins, man, who thought? I didn't. Maybe you did as a Texas Tech fan. Who thought that Texas Tech would just destroy the Pirate as they did? I kind of thought the Pirate was going to get his revenge. Jeremy is calling Bill Schoening as we speak. Uh-oh. Looks like we don't have him. He's trying again. Here we go. See if he talks to Bill. See if we see his...
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day is stars and night. Night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
Now, Chris Duel.
Try him again in about 3 minutes. It's the Chris Duel Show without Shannon Salty Sweeney, but just for this week. Shannon will be back on Monday, January 3rd. Jeremy KOLOK is our Soundscape stylist. And Jeremy, you were just trying to call Bill Schoening. Did you get voicemail? Did you leave him a message?
I got voicemail twice.
Did you leave a message so he knows we tried?
No, I can leave a message real quick here.
Try him one more time in like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
we get Bill every Wednesday, and Bill might have something going on.
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't mean anything by it, but I've never been rejected by Bill before. So
no, I don't think he's big timing us.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It blindsided me. Me and him were building a nice connection.
Yeah, just try him again at like 10 after. It's like 8:07 now, and leave him a message if you get voicemail. That way he knows we tried. So live radio, most of the time we get the guests we book, and Bill's been with us like over a year doing these on Wednesdays, and he's kind enough to do them. So yeah, he might have something else going on. We'll find out. So we've been talking about it all morning. It is the biggest topic in the sports world, and rightfully so. because he was so amazing and just so many layers to the John Madden story. And I see John Williams on our live video feed pointing out John Madden, when he was hired by Al Davis after the 1968 season, he was only 32 years old, which was remarkable at that time. I know lately, like Sean McVay was hired as a very young coach in his early 30s recently by the LA Rams. I know Kellen Moore is being rumored to be head coaching material, and he's in his early 30s. At a time in the NFL when John Madden was hired at 32, that was unusual. You know, most coaches were in their 40s, in their 50s, even older. And John Madden obviously went on to have a phenomenal career, not only as a coach, but then, as we all know, as a broadcaster. And then, of course, we talked to Jeremy about this, and Jeremy's 23. Jeremy became aware of John Madden from the Madden video game, and that's our poll question this morning. Which aspect of John Madden's life was most impactful to you? Was it his NFL coaching career? Was it his broadcasting career? Or was it the Madden video game? And right now, 82% say it was the broadcasting career. Only 3% say his NFL coaching career, which is crazy because he has the best winning percentage of any coach who's coached at least 100 games in the NFL, and 15% say the Madden video game. So pretty amazing. And Jeremy, I'm just, we've talked about it all morning, and we've seen, you just look at the Twitter world and great players, great coaches, people in and out of football paying tribute to John Madden. And it really is like, you know, yes, he was a sports figure, but it's almost like we've lost an American icon. I mean, he was such a big part of our culture and America, and probably a global icon as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about this in the break too, kind of how he did so many different things in his life, which, you know, we've touched on or attempted to touch on all of them, from coaching to broadcasting and, you know, the video game, and just being a football ambassador.
Yeah,
but
I got a text for Bill Schoening, by the way. He says he's there. Go ahead and give him.
Okay, yeah,
give him one more shot.
I just wanted to say that I think there's something about being a broadcaster and the fact that you are in people's homes, right? You're a part of people's leisure life, that people feel a stronger connection to those people.
It's a great point. And we're going to grab Bill Schoening one more time here. I just got a text from him. He's ready to go. You know, and as Jeremy just said about John Madden, you know, he would come into people's homes as a broadcaster. I remember when Johnny Carson, the famed and greatest late night talk show host ever, Johnny Carson, throughout his career with The Tonight Show, and when Johnny Carson passed away, a lot of people said that was the appeal of Johnny Carson. He came from the Midwest. People could relate to him. He came into our homes and entertained us and made us laugh. And it's kind of interesting, as we lose John Madden, I see him kind of like as a Johnny Carson. You know, obviously completely different kinds of broadcasting, but someone who appealed to the every man and every woman across America, and people just fell in love with the way he was a broadcaster. Speaking of broadcasters, a broadcaster you also love, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Bill, how you doing this morning?
Boom, right? That's what we always remember John Madden.
Yes.
Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. And Bill, we've been looking forward to talking with you about John Madden. We'll get into the Spurs here, obviously, in a moment. It's a Spurs game day / game night as the Miami Heat in town to take on the Spurs tonight, and you'll have the call. But the big story in sports today, as you know, Bill, the passing of John Madden. And as a guy yourself, Bill, who calls sports for a living on a very high level and has called the game of football, as you did, among other places, with the Texas Longhorns. From your perspective, what was it about John Madden that made him so universally loved and remarkable?
I think there were a lot of things that kind of made that happen. One was the fact that he was very relatable. I think that, the guy in Des Moines, Iowa, watching a football game could really relate to John Madden because he's a big guy and a former coach, and he kind of talked your language. He didn't try to talk over you. He explained things, but he did it in such a way that you didn't feel like he was, talking down to you. I think that was one thing. And then his enthusiasm. We just mentioned boom, and if he saw a big hit or if he saw a great catch, he would really get into it. He was almost like a fan, but he clearly wasn't a fan because he knew the game so well in terms of, being able to explain things. But he did so in such a way that you felt like he was watching the game with you. So I think those things were so relatable. And even the things like off the air, like the fact that he wouldn't fly. He had a fear of flying, so he had that Madden cruiser take him everywhere. And then he'd meet people, impress the flesh kind of thing, almost like a campaign across the country. So I think that he really touched a lot of people by just kind of the way he was and the enthusiasm he had for the sport.
And, you mentioned, Bill, the way he would meet people and press the flesh. I'm hearing from so many people, and we've heard this for years, but especially now, a lot of people say who he was on the air, that's who he was in real life, that he would meet just, a regular fan, and he would be welcoming, and he would be friendly, and he would be just a great guy away from the stadium and away from the microphone. And as I hear that, Bill, that makes me like him even more. What an amazing, to be a great guy as a professional doing your job at such a high level, but to also be a good man and treat other human beings very, very well. I think that's part of his legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that really endeared him to other people in the industry, not just the fans. But, I've been watching my Facebook post and the Twitter comments throughout the last 24 hours or so. I guess he passed away yesterday. And a lot of my fellow media people who had contact with him and interviewed him or had a chance to cover a game with him, whatever, say the same thing. He was just a really easy guy to work with and to, maybe even sit down and have a meal with. So these guys certainly were touched by the presence of John Madden.
Well, and one other thing, Bill, and you will know this because you and I are about the same age. Before John Madden, John Madden came in as an analyst and brought a level of entertainment that normally analysts were very, they were usually either jocks, former players, or former coaches, and usually they played it straight. We played earlier some audio of John Madden drawing a beard on Troy Aikman with the telestrator on the sideline, or showing how to carve up a turducken with the telestrator. I was thinking back, other than Monday Night Football with Howard and Dandy Don and Frank Gifford, which was, I think, were innovators in bringing entertainment into the sports broadcast booth. But before John Madden, you bring up the passion and the entertainment value, and there was nobody else really doing it the way John Madden did it.
No, you're exactly right. I think of a guy like back in that era, Tom Brookshire, who's a really good announcer and a former player, but he was very analytical and very serious on the air. He didn't have the same entertainment value, I don't think, as a John Madden. I think that's why they elevated him to the number one spot on their Sunday games, because he had such a good rapport with his partners, and also, like I said earlier, he was so relatable to the fans that they really kind of made him the number one guy because he was so popular, just a regular guy calling a football game.
Very, very cool. John Madden, for anybody just tuning in, passed away yesterday at the age of 85. We're talking with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And Bill, you got to do some work tonight, some broadcasting, as you do so well as the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Spurs have been on a roll of late, although they did lose the other night to the Utah Jazz. What do you think they have to do? This is a very good Miami team, obviously, coming in tonight. What do the Spurs have to do tonight against the Miami Heat to bounce back and get back on the winning track?
Well, there's a couple of things tonight. Defensively, they've really got to keep an eye on that three-point line, because they've got a couple of excellent three-point shooters that had a big game last night, both of them, Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero. Hero came off the bench to have his third 30-point game of the year last night in a home win over Washington. Now, they're on the second night of a back-to-back. They're also a little bit shorthanded. They've got a couple of guys out with health and safety protocol. Kyle Lowry, their point guard, Max Strus, who's been doing a good job off the bench. Butler played very well last night. Jimmy Butler, he had 15 assists, a career high last night. Late in the game, he turned his ankle, but he told the reporters after the game that he would be able to go tonight against the Spurs. So I think team defense will be very important tonight for San Antonio.
And even with that loss that the Spurs suffered against the Jazz the other night, Bill, you still look at how they've performed lately. They still they went 3 out of 4 on that road trip. They had a 3-game win streak, so they've still currently won 3 out of 4, and they've won 10 out of their last 16 games. You look at this snapshot of the last 16 games, which includes that win at Golden State, the 2 wins on the floor of the Clippers and the Los Angeles Lakers, the win at Utah, the team that just beat them. You beat Utah in their house. I mean, this Spurs team, which is very, very young, as you've discussed on the air, in general here, and more often than not lately, finding a way to win these games.
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of things to be encouraged about. Even the other night after the game, Greg Popovich, the head coach of the Spurs, said, hey, look, this team's playing hard. They didn't shoot the ball very well. Overall, he was pleased with their effort. Early in the game, they didn't shoot the ball well. I think they missed 10 of their first 11 threes. And against a team like Utah that shoots a high volume of threes, they shoot more threes than any team in the league. You got to be able to keep pace with them from the three-point line. They were unable to do that. Not that Utah hit a ton of them, but you got to stay in that neighborhood with them because they're going to fire up a lot of threes, and they're also fourth in the league in three-point percentage. The thing that I think was most encouraging is the way that the players have this attitude, like, look, it's a long season. Derek White said right after the game, we're making progress, but there's a long way to go. There's 49 games left. And I'm looking at the standings right now, Chris, and it is such a bottleneck right there in the middle of the pack in the Western Conference. The Denver Nuggets, for instance, right now are 17 and 16, right? So they're in the 5th seed right now. They are 3 games ahead of the Spurs. So look at it that way. You got 49 games to play. And if you stay healthy and you keep getting better and keep improving, these young guys keep coming on, you got a lot of time to make up a lot of room, or a little bit of room, really. So I think if they keep it going and they don't get a real bad injury situation or COVID protocols like what happened last year, I think that if they can keep that thing going, then they have an excellent chance to make the playoffs and maybe even move up in the standings past the 7-8 spot and get into the playoffs.
So remarkable. And, Bill, you look at, again, where this team is going, and I agree with you. Certainly, if they play at the rate they've played the last 16 games, they would certainly probably pave their way into the playoffs. Greg Popovich, all of the years that he coached in San Antonio and with the Big Three, and going to those 6 finals and winning 5 of them, Pop will never be considered for coach of the year, but you think about it, Bill, coaching the youngest team he's ever coached. If this team gets into the playoffs, as you described, and I believe they will, I think this has to go down as one of the better coaching jobs Greg Popovich has done in his remarkable career.
One of the most amazing things to me, Chris, is how much he's enjoying this. He's 72 years old. He doesn't have to do this, obviously. He just came off the Olympic championship, which was obviously a big crowning achievement for him, along with the 5 NBA titles. But he really seems to enjoy coaching these young guys. And there's more teaching involved. There's more hands-on involved. And when you've got Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker out there and a bunch of veterans that know what they're doing. But I think that he said the other night that the most satisfying thing for him has been the way that these guys have come together. They're accepting coaching and they're meshing. And they obviously have a great chemistry. Derek White talked about that in the postgame the other night about how good a locker room this is. So even though there have been some losses and some bumps along the way and some tough defeats, they just keep going on. They don't want to get too high after wins, too low after losses. And they've got a huge 7-game road trip coming up. So it will be nice for them to end this little 3-game homestand with a win tonight and get a little momentum going into Brooklyn on Friday night.
He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And Bill, what I've really enjoyed the last few games, and this has kind of happened throughout the season, but it's really happened in a big way the last few games. Some unlikely players have really stepped up and made their presence felt. A couple of games ago, Keita Bates-Diop had a phenomenal game, a career game. Jock Landale, the Aussie, I know you've talked about him a lot. You talked about him with assistant coach Becky Hammond the other night in postgame. The fact that you may think of him as a rookie if you're not paying attention, but he's played a lot of professional basketball and he's very seasoned. It's kind of cool seeing guys like Keita Bates-Diop and Jock Landale make big noise for the Spurs here recently.
And to see the way that their teammates are reacting to those guys, because remember, early in the season, Jock Landale had a bunch of things to overcome. He had a concussion, and then he was in health and safety protocols for a while. Keita Bates-Diop has worked his way into the rotation with hard work. His teammates said that he works his tail off in practice, all during the open gym and training camp, and really has worked hard to get this opportunity, and he's making the most of it. Landale's an interesting prospect. As you mentioned, he played overseas. He's from Australia. He played college ball at St. Mary's, that pipeline with Australia and St. Mary's University in California. And he had a very good college career, did not get drafted. So instead of, being upset or pouting, he went over and played in Serbia, which is a very tough league over there. And then he came back home to Australia and played. And last year, he was the finals MVP in the Australian National League. The NBL is what they call it over there. And then, of course, he got this opportunity with the Spurs. And now he's finally getting a chance to break into the rotation after those early struggles that we talked about. And he's making the most of it. He hits the three ball very well. He stays active on the boards. And I think that he's a guy that probably has earned his spot in the rotation, at least for now. And I know that the coaches and the teammates like him. And the fans seem to like him as well. So that's all good stuff.
Yeah, and you talk about the fans liking Jock Landale. What do you think it is about Josh Primo, who came in at age 18? He turned 19 just a few days ago. Fans have just absolutely fallen in love with Josh Primo. Do you think it's the fact that he did come in as an 18-year-old, and that kind of seems like an anomaly? Why do they love Josh Primo so much?
I think that the fans are really paying attention to understand that this is a draft pick for the future, not necessarily a guy that's going to come in and score 20 points a game right now for you. And I think maybe in a way to encourage him, because he's so young, as you mentioned, just turning 19 on Christmas Eve, it's a way to kind of get behind him a little bit. But he does have kind of a bounce to his game. There's no question. He's a fun player to watch. And I think that because he represents the future, I think that's one of the reasons why he has endeared himself to the fans. So without just going out there and playing. It's not like he's, throwing roses to the crowd. He's going out there and playing the game, but he's got a smile. He's got that kind of, I don't know, there's something about Josh Primo that draws people to him. And I haven't had a chance to really get to know him very well. He's been running up and down, of course, with Austin and San Antonio. But I think that he's got a very, very bright future. Just his overall outlook, he's like a really bright kid. And obviously his older teammates really like him. And they think that he's got a very bright future, too. So if the coaches and your other teammates have confidence in you, I think that makes you perform better. And then, of course, the fans, they just absolutely love Josh Primo. They can't wait for him to get in the game.
Absolutely. And they will be there tonight at the AT&T Center, Spurs fans. And Bill will have the call as the Spurs host the Miami Heat. Tip-off just after 7:30. That means Spurs radio game night with Bill, 7 o'clock, coming out of 1200 WOAI, the Spurs flagship station in San Antonio and across the Spurs radio network. Let's hope the Spurs can bounce back tonight, Bill. I got a good feeling about tonight. I look forward to it, and we'll see you on the radio beginning at 7.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And as we roll forward, love talking to these longtime prolific broadcasters like Bill. And coming up, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics. I want to get his thoughts on John Madden and why he was so special. I also want to ask Andy Everett, should these bowl teams, and, he just went through this with UTSA, and they were in a bowl game, and that bowl game was played successfully, although UTSA would have rather won it. But you got UCLA pulling out of the Holiday Bowl yesterday with COVID issues, and now you've got the college football playoff coming up. We got to make sure that comes off without a COVID glitch. But should these bowl teams be approaching these bowl games differently in the COVID era, treating it more like a business trip? I want to get into that with Andy Everett as well. Andy's going to join us next. Jeremy KOLOK making the show go. Shannon Salty Sweeney's got the week off. Lots to cover between now and 9 o'clock. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Chris Duel Show. There you go, Ralph Balderas. We do need a national boom day, but not booms plural, boom singular. Because booms plural could mean Chuck Booms, who I brought up the other day, my one-time radio co-host. All right. One more segment. Andy Everett. All right, where's Andy here? Get a little Andy Everett going on. There he is. Andy Everett coming up in just a moment.
Who brought the sauce? I got the sauce. Who made the sauce? I made the sauce. What's in the sauce? I am the sauce. Who brought the sauce?
Spill the sauce? Quick! The quicker picker upper. Bounty picks up spills and messes quicker. And each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less than the leading ordinary brand.
Who brought the sauce?
I got the sauce.
Who made the sauce?
I made the sauce.
What's in the sauce?
I am the sauce.
Who brought the sauce? Okay.
Bounty, the quicker picker upper.
Yeah, I might have to just get into begin the New Year's thing now. I think I'm gonna go with the New Year's hat. I'm gonna wear this tomorrow, definitely. Tomorrow's our last show before New Year's. Lower my seat a little bit. Now we're talking. I'm seeing a lot of those memes that 2022 is pronounced 2020 TOO, like it's going to be 2020 all over again. God help us. 2022. Yeah, you may want to call him if he hadn't called in by 35. Thanks, sir. Jeremy is calling Andy. Thank you, sir. Can you ask him why didn't you call us? Are you big timing us? What's going on here?
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And Chris and Salty on Twitter, at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
Welcome back, Chris Duel Show. Shannon on vacation till next year, 2022, which rolls in on Friday night, Saturday morning. But on Monday's show, Shannon expected to be back. Jeremy KOLOK making the show go, as he has been doing in the afternoons as well. If you've been listening to the Mike Taylor show in the afternoon, certainly yesterday afternoon, and I understand again this afternoon, Mr. Andy Everett will be hosting that show as he worked the show yesterday with Jeremy. Andy, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, and as you know, I got to believe it's the biggest story in sports. It is everywhere, the passing of legendary coach and broadcaster and namesake of his football video game, John Madden. We've been talking about it all morning, Andy. As a professional broadcaster, want to get your perspective on John Madden. What, in your estimation, was it about John Madden that made him so remarkable? And when he passes at the age of 85, makes the entire, not only sports world, but it seems like the whole country is reacting to the passing of John Madden.
Well, I think, first of all, I remember him as a coach, and he would go into the coldest of climates and have a short sleeve shirt on and his credential hanging from his jacket, or maybe as a windbreaker was about as much as he ever put on. A lot of times he didn't even do that, and it was flapping around in the wind, and so he was pacing up and down the sidelines. And I remember him from the Kenny Stabler days of the Raiders, and I think maybe the start of the Raider Nation, if you will, back in the late 60s and early 70s. And he and Al Davis both had that blue-collar work ethic, and I think that gravitated to a lot of people who can relate to that. And then when he joined Pat Summerall in the booth, we started to see the evolution of television becoming more of an entertainment deal than an information deal. And in the past, you know, I can go back to Kurt Gowdy, who was a Hall of Fame play-by-play guy. And the NBC game of the week was Kurt Gowdy and a guy named Al DeRogatis. And Al was a former player and a really analytical guy of it, but he wasn't outspoken. He wasn't outgoing. He didn't yell and scream into the mic. And Pat Summerall was very much like Kurt Gowdy in that very laid-back, generic announcer, but obviously a golden voice after working in CBS for years before he joined when he was still playing football. But John Madden brought that charisma to the color commentary position, and that's what a lot of these guys that did games came from radio. And in radio, the color commentator is there to analyze what the play-by-play guy doesn't have time for. In TV, it's just the opposite. In TV, the play-by-play guy's job is to make the color analysts talk about the game in a way that people can understand it. And I never heard John Madden go, they're in cover 2 or they're in cover 3 or the safety's going to do this or do that and talk in football language. He talked in things that his mother could understand, that his grandmother could understand. And I think that related to the common football fan that was trying to learn the game, and it did so in a very charismatic way. So that to me is the legacy that I have. And then Jeremy and I were talking about this for just a second last night. From Jeremy's standpoint, the way he knows John Madden and his generation is through the video games. And I've never played a Madden football game in my life, so I don't follow that, and I know of it, and I know that players always look forward to being on the cover guy for Madden, or maybe it's a jinx if they are, or maybe it's not a jinx if they are. But every generation has a different version of him, and mine is as a coach and certainly as a broadcaster.
Well, it is amazing as you describe that. You know, Jeremy being 23 years old, just the arc of John Madden's career, assuming the head coaching job with the Oakland Raiders after the 1968 season at the age of 32, and then, you know, to the broadcasting booth and then to the Madden video game, which is Jeremy's point of reference as a 20-something. And I was thinking about this earlier, Andy, and I was talking to Jeremy about it. You know, you brought this up, the entertainment value that John Madden brought to the analyst chair and to the broadcast booth. And I was thinking, before John Madden, most analysts, as you described, Al DeRogatis and others, played it fairly straight. And I was thinking, other than Monday Night Football, which their legendary broadcast booth, I think they were the first with Howard Cosell and Dandy Don Meredith, along with Frank Gifford. I think they were the first to bring a lot of entertainment value into the sports broadcasting booth. But other than them, I really think John Madden was a pioneer for doing what he did. You know, we played audio of him using the telestrator to show how to carve a turducken and using the telestrator to draw a beard on Troy Aikman. I mean, he would just do things that other people wouldn't think of. And as you mentioned, Andy, he related to the common man, and that's how we all fell in love with him.
And I think the Monday Night Football crew was different because I think that the lead guy was supposed to be Frank Gifford, and Don Meredith was there for humor, and Howard Cosell was there to give us the highlights. And because he was Howard Cosell, people wanted to see what he would say. He was the water cooler guy. Hey, did you hear what Howard Cosell said last night? But to me, there was never really a lead guy. It was three guys just kind of running commentary for the whole game. And to kind of give you an inside story, my dad did not like the Monday Night Football crew after they fired Alex Karras, because he really thought Alex Karras was that John Madden type funny guy. But he only was in there for a year, and then all the gambling allegations started coming out from him, and the NFL and ABC decided he didn't need to be a part of it anymore. And Alex went on to be a movie star and do all those kind of things. But in spite of not wanting to listen to those three, I grew up in my house listening to the CBS radio version of the games with Hank Stram and Jack Buck. And then we would watch the halftime highlights, and then I usually had to go to bed by then, so I didn't get to see much of the second half. But that is I think John Madden is one of the first guys that changed how networks look at color commentators and what they're looking for, and they want somebody. Tony Romo's now in that vein. Troy Aikman's not as bombastic as either one of them are, but certainly a very entertaining guy. And Chris Collinsworth, they're there to bring you the game in an entertaining way, not an X's and O's way.
Absolutely. Andy Everett with us. He's the voice of UTSA athletics. Andy, just want to get your thoughts and your feel. You know, you as a broadcaster, along with UTSA, just went through the Frisco Bowl, and thank goodness there were no COVID issues that preempted the Frisco Bowl. We find out yesterday, just hours before kickoff, that UCLA had to pull out of the Holiday Bowl. The athletic director at North Carolina State not happy. He feels UCLA was not communicating that they had a potential problem. North Carolina State, he said, would have rather had a plan B to go to if they knew that this could happen, and it did. And yet UCLA, the night before the bowl game, went to SeaWorld. They got on buses and they all went to SeaWorld in San Diego. From your perspective, Andy, knowing what we know about COVID and having seen teams pull out of bowl games and see bowl games canceled, should these bowl teams be handling things differently now and maybe not going to SeaWorld as UCLA did?
I think at some point you have to we have to return to what we knew as normal. I don't think you can go to a bowl game with your team for 4 or 5 days and just have them practice and not have them go anywhere and sequester them in a hotel room. And especially a year from now where we start doing all this over again, you know, hopefully we're that much closer to finding a way to control COVID so that it's not just another issue that's out there like all the other contagious diseases that we have to worry about. And so not knowing what that's going to look like a year from now, then we'll have to figure out what's going on then. But part of bowl week is going to events, of doing things other than just practicing. And I don't think bowl games are nearly as important as conference championship games. I kind of sense that. I mean, I don't think any coach or any player or any fan would say, you know what, this isn't a big game, because it is, because then it's the next game. But I could kind of just sense that there wasn't the same emotion for the game against San Diego State as there was against Western Kentucky or UAB, those two of the last 3 games of the year. And so I think you have to have some kind of built-in emotion to these games, and part of that is the reward for these players to be able to go see things in a community that maybe they've never been to before, or to a place in their own community that they've never been before, in the case of UCLA. Now, I look at it from this standpoint. UTSA had several players out with the flu. They had several players that were academically ineligible. They had several players that had COVID issues. They had several players that were injured, and they had 2 players declared for the NFL draft. So they were down 20-something players, and we talked about that during the pregame show last week. They still played the game. UCLA may have had some COVID cases, and they may have been to key players. But that doesn't mean the freshmen couldn't have played, or the guys that didn't have COVID yet. I think you could have found 60 guys out of your 120 that could have gone out there on the field and played, and maybe they just didn't want to put that type of a team out there and showcase that and potentially lose on national TV. It's not being familiar with the case, I don't know. Obviously, if you've got half your team sick, then you can't play, because then you're probably going to get the other team sick, and they got to get on a plane and fly home. So I don't know the entire situation, but I think there's a way to get these games in if the teams want to.
Andy Everett, he will be hosting the Mike Taylor Show this afternoon at 4. But I got to ask you, Andy, you are an Oklahoma Sooner alum and partisan. You talked about emotion. Will you be misty-eyed with Bob Stoops back on the sideline tonight for the Oklahoma Sooners? Are you talk about bowl games not being as big as conference championship games? As an Oklahoma Sooner fan, are you excited about tonight's Valero Alamo Bowl against Oregon?
I am to some extent, but certainly not as excited I would be if it was the Big 12 championship game that were played here as it were several years ago, or even if when the game was played in Jerry World. I think that the bowl games, and I've said this for years, I think they matter to the 2 teams that are playing. I think it's a reward for the players to go do something. I think it's a reward for the fans, especially those who live in cold climates, to go to bowl games that are in warmer climates during Christmas. I think it's kind of icing on the cake for a job well done. But there's only 4 teams whose bowl game really matters. And Alabama and Cincinnati and Michigan and Georgia are going to play each other, and the winners get to move on. And to me, those are the games that the entire nation cares the most about. But I don't know. I don't know how you create that extra energy. Obviously, having Bob Stoops on the sideline is a cool thing. It's temporary. He's been around the program enough. He knows what Lincoln Riley's playbook was because Lincoln was his offensive coordinator a few years ago. So not a lot's going to change. And I think once the ball snapped and somebody hits someone, everybody starts to get kind of excited about the game, and you go on from there. But from a die-hard, I got to see every second of it. I'm going to be on pins and needles. It's the last game of the year, and win or lose, it doesn't affect this year or next year. So I think that's the only downside to any bowl game that doesn't have you moving on to another game.
Andy, I got a hard out pretty quickly, about 30 seconds left. What do we have to look forward to with you hosting the Mike Taylor Show this afternoon at 4?
We'll talk with Doc Garrett. We'll have more John Madden discussion. We'll talk about the Alamo Bowl. And I want to know why the Spurs are playing a home game tonight. They shouldn't. The league messed up there. They should have blocked this date off. There's no reason why the Alamo Bowl should have to go opposite the Spurs. So those are my thoughts.
Totally agree with you on that. I will be listening. Andy Everett, 4 o'clock this afternoon, in for Mike Taylor. Andy, thanks so much, man. Have a great show this afternoon.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. And Jeremy, you will be a part of that show as you've been working double duty and triple duty a lot lately. Great show today, Jeremy. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And you'll be here tomorrow for our big New Year's Eve extravaganza, even though it's New Year's Eve tomorrow, but it's our last show before New Year's.
Yes, sir. I will be a part of it.
Very cool. We'll have to figure out something to do on New Year's Eve, and we will. Have yourself a wonderful Wednesday, December 29th. Our thanks to Andy Everett. Catch him at 4, in for Mike Taylor. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs. Catch him tonight with the call as the Spurs take on the Miami Heat. Pre-game, 7 o'clock on 1200 WOAI out of San Antonio and across the Spurs radio network. For Jeremy, for Andy, for Bill, our thanks to everybody listening on the radio, on the live video feed, and listening on the iHeartRadio app, where you can also find the Chris Duel Show podcast, which drops on the iHeartRadio app as well. Have yourself a great Wednesday. Enjoy these final days of 2021, and we'll see you tomorrow. Adios, amigos. Woo! Steve DiRocco, the original rock, the original Italian stallion. What is up, Rocket Man? All right. I got Spurs tonight. We will do Spurs React after the game on video. Wherever you're watching here, it will appear as well. Facebook, Twitter. It's also going to be on 1200 WOAI's Facebook and Twitter pages. Thank you, Ralph Balderas. Thank you, Jason Paniagua. And wow, Axel J. Miller, man, I know you're a Raiders fan. You know, for all of us, the passing of John Madden is sad. But man, oh man, for Raiders fans, I remember when Tom Landry passed away. That was a really profoundly sad moment for Cowboys fans like Steve DiRocco and myself. All right, y'all. We are out of here. There goes Jeremy. Happy New Year. My Happy New Year hat. Thank you, Beth Settle, for the Happy New Year hat. Wow, look at that. Axel J. Miller. John Madden and I share the April 10th birthday. Very cool. All right, everybody. See you on the Spurs broadcast tonight. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 6 to 9 here on the final show of 2021 for us. Have a great Wednesday. See you later.